This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
You're about to listen to a brand new episode of Curious Cases. Shows are going to be released weekly, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you're in the UK, you can listen to the latest episodes first on BBC Sounds. I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. One of the big problems about post-COVID, as well as all of the other massive problems, is that I just think that viruses have ended up with quite a bad reputation, you know?
You think they've ended up with a bad reputation? I'm literally standing in front of you here with a t-shirt that says virus is bad. But I put a lot of money into the virus is bad t-shirt. Are you telling me it's a grey area? I think
you need to get a permanent marker and pop a little question mark on there at least.
Okay, yeah. See, this is the thing, you see, I'm very settled in my virus is bad stance. Yeah. I don't want to be, it'd be embarrassing to have to probably back down now.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, guess what's going to happen over the next half hour, Dara?
It's like, I often take a snap judgment against people, right?
Sure.
And then...
You have a reputation for doing so.
I do. I'm known for it, like whatever. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of me if I just randomly decide you're not a good person. Unless then we ain't spend any time at all together, in which case they go, oh, yeah, they're all right, actually. You never survive.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do a lot. I do to the extent that my wife goes, oh, really? Did you have lunch with them and now you think they're okay? I mean, that's like it's a cliche.
Okay, well, will you sit down for lunch with the virus?
I will. I will happily. Me and one say virus in the other.
What do viruses eat?
Oh my God, these are so many things we need to know about viruses.
I mean, are they even alive?
I know that's a question. I do know that's a question. Do you know what? I'll ask in a second.
Okay, well, viruses are on the menu for today because we have had this question come in from Elizabeth in London.
Hi, Hannah and Dara. I'm Elizabeth and I'm in London. I'm wondering if all viruses are evil. We once reacted to bacteria as if all bacteria were evil, but now we find that lots of bacteria are beneficial. Indeed, many are positively essential. Are any viruses beneficial or essential? Do we even know? Thanks as always for your great programme and the opportunity to ask.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and thank you for doing a better introduction to an episode than we just did or have ever done. That was really good. And it was also put in context, put in the bacterial context of us going, oh yeah, bacteria bad, but actually it turns out, good bacteria.
Well, that's it, right? Whoever the PR rep is for bacteria has, they're having a field day.
They're doing really, really well.
They've done a great
they've got
bacteria.
The whole little yogurt things. Yeah.
Oh, goodness me.
Wow, that was genius. Bacteria is high-fiving all around the room.
They were.
When we come to
they were inside your stomach, they were doing.
Yeah.
having a little victory dance.
And somewhere in a bar, there's two viruses looking at telly going, we need that. We need better PR.
In the corner of the bar, you come on and you're wearing your virus is bad t-shirt.
They're going, look, we got to do something about this. Okay, I'm open-minded about this.
All right, let's sit down and have lunch with some viruses then, shall we?
Fine. Joining us to pass judgment on the moral character of these oft-maligned microbes are Marilyn Rusink, Professor Emeritus of Plant Virology at Penn State University in the US, Professor Martha Clokey, Virologist at University of Leicester, and Jonathan Ball, Professor of Molecular Virology at the University of Liverpool. Jonathan, let's start with the basics. What is a virus?
If you want the posh definition, it is always. It's an intracellular obligate intracellular parasite.
Now less posh.
Keeping it up for me.
Okay. I like to think of them as some of the simplest forms of life, but that's contentious whether or not a virus is living. But it's essentially a bit of genetic material wrapped in a protein shell that has to get inside another cell to then hijack that cell to enable it to replicate.
If you were to take a virus for lunch, Right. What
Okay.
would it eat?
That's a very good question.
Does it eat?
Well, it doesn't really. No, we wouldn't think of a virus as eating a cell. What they're doing is getting inside the cell, they're hijacking it, they're using the machinery to make lots and lots of copies of themselves, and then those viruses break out of that cell. They can cause the cell to burst, but essentially when they get outside, they'll try and find another cell to infect, and so continues the life cycle of a virus.
And so this is why there's a debate about whether they're alive or not, because they cannot survive on their own.
Exactly. So if there'll be literally millions of viruses on this table, and they can't survive unless they get inside a cell to replicate. They will be viable, or lots of them will be viable, but until they get into a cell, they can't replicate, therefore they can't continue that viral line.
Martha, were you going to add on that?
Oh, just that we have our own metabolism, and it's that metabolism that a virus needs. So it needs. So we eat, and the viruses, it's kind of in a way use what we've eaten to. they hijack that transcriptional and translational machinery.
So if you're at a lunch date with a virus, it's not eating anything; it's invading you and using your body to eat.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's not going
Pretty
well,
much
is it?
Yeah. Can I just ask what the fundamental question is? How many are there?
I mean, billions and billions. People say more than the stars in the universe.
Yeah,
but
10 to the 31.
More than the stars in the universe.
Yeah.
And when you say 10 to the 31, that is of including copies of that's not in terms of different types of viruses. How many do we think?
Well, they're the most genetically diverse thing that exists. You can find viruses anywhere that literally have nothing in common with each other. So there's millions of different types of viruses. And then for each bacteria that exists, it's thought that there's between 10 and 100 bacteriophages. So in a litre of seawater, for example, there's more viruses in there than there are humans on the planet. There's 10 billion viruses in a litre of water. I mean, that's a more scalable number to get your head around.
Yeah, but also scary in the sense of how do we presume that we could possibly survive this? Because the presumption is that they're all bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. They're not more bad than bacteria. A subset are bad, like a subset of bacteria are bad. But they're just, these ones in seawater, none of them, you can accidentally drink seawater, you'll be fine. They'll just infect they won't even hurt your bacteria because they'll just be infecting the bacteria that are in seawater.
Okay, so there's lots of them. They're tiny, and most of them would pass without affecting us in any way at all.
yeah, indeed, there's so many viruses out there that we simply haven't yet discovered. We think that we know a tiny, tiny fraction of what we call the virome. So we're the mass, the wealth of viruses are out there. And as techniques in the lab are improving, we're discovering more and more viruses that we didn't know about in different places, many of which don't cause disease. We only really know the ones that we think are unfriendly, but there are huge numbers that we don't know what they're doing.
And where to swab the inside of my mouth or my ear?
Guess what? There'll be lots there.
Yeah.
And most of them, they're not causing disease. They're going to be living on other things which are living in your ears or on your skin. So you are a walking zoological garden of microbes.
Put that on your T-shirt. All right, when you said there that they're going to be living on things that are living on Dara, right, so does that mean that viruses are infecting other life forms?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's a bit like that, God, and I can never remember it, the fly thing and ad infinitum. Yeah,
Little fleas have lesser fleas upon their backs to bite them, and lesser fleas have lesser fleas and so ad infinitum.
Oh, right.
So, yeah.
never remember that.
So is that true then? If you is it sort of like Inception all the way down?
As I say, every life form will have at least one, and it will have multiple viruses that infect it.
Marilyn, tell us about the kind of virus we find in plants, fungi, animals.
Yeah, so I have spent most of my life working on plant and fungal viruses. I've done some work on wild plant viruses, and every plant has them. We've never found a plant without a virus in it in the wild, and usually many. And also fungi. Fungi almost always have viruses, so they are everywhere.
I can see the benefit for the virus here, right? Like you find a host, you sort of infect it, you use its kind of mechanisms for your own ends. But what about the host itself? Is it always bad to be infected with a virus?
So, in fact, if you think about it, it's not a good thing for the host to get sick. If the virus makes the host sick, that's a big disadvantage for the virus. So I think viruses that cause disease are just in the wrong place. So in their natural host, in their normal environment, if they do anything, they're going to help the host. So there are many examples of beneficial viruses, mutualistic viruses.
So give me an example then. Give me a story about a virus that's beneficial to the host.
Okay, my favorite story is one in Yellowstone National Park. There are plants that grow there in the geothermal soils with temperatures over 50 degrees centigrade. Plants normally cannot grow at those temperatures, but these plants are colonized by a fungus, and if they don't have the fungus, they can't grow. But the fungus is infected with a virus. So you have to have all three. You have to have the virus, the fungus, and the plant for this holobiont, we call it, which is 3 symbiotic organisms in this case, that live together, and that lets them grow in these really hot soils.
It's like a 3-way microbial rom-com you're describing there.
It is. Yeah.
Just set against the beautiful backdrop of Yellowstone. What about humans? Are there any viruses that are good for humans?
Yes, definitely. There are a number of viruses in humans, like hepatitis G virus, or now it's usually called GB virus. That is ubiquitous. It's very common in humans. It doesn't cause any disease we know of. But if you get HIV, it delays the onset of disease. And in fact, our genomes are full of viruses too. So there are classes of viruses that integrate into the genome, and about 8% of our genome is retrovirus in nature. For one thing, we wouldn't be placental if we didn't have a virus. So it's a retrovirus integrated into our genome that allows the formation of the placenta, which is, we know, required for mammalian birth. So
I feel like I need to massively go back here because you just said placentas wouldn't exist without viruses. Just walk me through that.
Okay, so retroviruses are integrated into the genome to replicate. They all do that. If that happens in a germline cell, that is one of our reproductive cells, then they are there forever. All future generations will have that virus incorporated in its genome.
Okay, so you've got viruses floating around, invading cells all over your body. That's kind of just happening all the time. If it just so happens that a virus invades a cell that is used as part of your reproduction, you can pass on that change in DNA to your offspring.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you end up essentially with alien DNA in your offspring.
Well, I don't know if it's alien. It's just...
It's about 8% of you is alien.
I beg your pardon.
8% of your DNA is alien.
8% we can recognize as pretty much intact viruses.
Wait, 8%
and then another,
of the human DNA comes from viruses? Yeah. That's insane.
And can we tell when that happened? Can we go, well, that was... I mean, was it from an instance? One instance where one virus got into DNA and that's just propagated?
We can look across the DNA of different species and see when they likely shared a common ancestor. And we know for mammals, we've acquired these syncytin genes multiple times in different species. So clearly this was an advantageous thing to do.
So it would have happened a number of times and would have rested into the DNA a number of different times and then just become...
Across different mammals.
Would have achieved success and become standard to our DNA.
Absolutely. And we're seeing it in action now. We're seeing a koala virus invading the koala genome in real time at the moment. So we've got 2 different populations of koala in Australia, one of which is very susceptible to the disease caused by a retrovirus. The other one is actually getting its genome invaded by that retrovirus, and we think that's happened within the last 100 years or so. And it's offering it some protection against the disease.
Wait. There's a lot of words going on here, like retrovirus and genomes and mutant. And I just.
This is a trouble when you put a load of virologists together.
I know. I'm sorry. What you are saying is so crazy to me. I just want to make sure that I haven't just fantasized the whole version that we're 8% aliens in my own mind.
You're still stuck on being 8% alien.
Yeah, of course.
Let's move on.
Of course.
That is up past one knee. Like 8% would be the
It's at least the big toe and the little toe.
Yeah. Okay, koalas, right? So you've got a baddie koala virus, right, that makes some koalas sick. And then one day, that baddie virus happens to invade a cell in that koala that is part of the of generating the offspring of that koala, right? So then, am I right?
Yes, you're right.
So now the baddie virus is like in the baby koala,
but it's been tamed.
tamed because it's sort of
tamed.
subsumed.
It's been attenuated.
It's like Spider-Man,
yes,
right? Like you become Spider. I've never seen Spider-Man. Is that the plot?
No, that's not the plot.
I haven't either, so I can't help you out there.
So the spider didn't bite the dad of Spider-Man.
We'll have to
in an area that may affect the breeding of the next Spider-Man. No, that's not what happens.
Okay, but then so the now this like super kind of nuclear baby koala who's like protected from bad koala virus because it has subsumed all of the koala virus bad DNA.
Yes, and we'll end up losing lots of it. It will keep the bits that are useful for it. Wow. It's a bit like your junk drawer at home, you know?
I'll tell you.
Yeah, but that's not going to be passed on to our children. I mean, God, but today, that's all going in a skip. When the kids get to clear the house out, you know, none of that stuff is being passed on.
Along with all my awards.
Oh, yeah. God, she's really proud of this stuff.
Marilyn, just coming back to you. So is this what happened when humans got placentas or mammals got placentas?
Yes, it is. That's how we got them. The protein that is required to make the placenta is called syncytin, and it is a retroviral protein. And it's true, there are many different ones in different mammal lineages, and it's not really clear. Some people think that there was an initial invasion of this virus that started the first placental mammal, but then perhaps it's been replaced over time by different viruses, similar viruses.
Yeah, and
because the one we have is different than the one you find in cats, for example. But that's it. If we didn't have that virus, we wouldn't have placental mammals, and who knows where we'd be.
Yeah, and going back to the point about multiple invasions, as it were, if you look through the genome, you can see multiple copies of these genes that have been acquired, but not all of them are switched on. And it just so happens that the one that we use in humans, syncytin-1, makes the placenta. But there's also a related viral protein called syncytin-2 that we think allows the mother to tolerate the presence of the baby because, you know, you've got an alien inside you, let's face it. So it basically, an alien parasite. So your natural instinct will be to get rid of that. And so syncytin-2, we think, gives some tolerance to the fetus as it's growing and developing.
So are we saying now then that the only reason why babies exist in the way that they do is because of viruses?
Pretty much. That's what gave rise to mammals, or placental mammals.
Right. Good bit of alien.
There are evolutionary biologists who think that we are just coalesced viruses. I happen to be one that kind of tends to think that way. It all started with viruses, and then they just kept coming together and adding more and more genes, and voila, we have a human now.
Well, then, so then, does that mean that we're not 8%? That actually, you know, the further you go back, there's more and more and more that came from viruses at some point in history.
There's a lot of other DNA that we have that's probably viral in origin. The 8% is what we can identify as intact retrovirus.
It's extraordinary.
When you do the DNA, you send off for the DNA test. You spit in the cup and send off, to find out. I'm 63% Viking and 29% Irish. It doesn't go, and you're 8% viral.
No, they don't tell you that.
If you used my DNA service, you would.
People would be really, really shocked if they went, "Oh God!" Well,
it does put a different twist on the phrase "going viral," though, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Essentially, yeah,
absolutely.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
All right, I can see how essential viruses are for life, but they can also be deadly and harmful to humans, so I'm not entirely committed to this yet.
All right, Dara's not convinced yet, fine. But Martha, you've got a model there. Just talk us through that. Is that bacteria?
Yeah, so these are viruses that infect bacteria, so they're a little bit more complicated.
Okay, so what we have here is we have it's sort of like a yellow peanut, right? Sort of a bit bigger than a glass of water. And
so this is a giant model of a bacteria.
And around the outside, it's got all of these holes that are different shapes. Some of them are round, some of them are cross-shaped, some of them...
So they're representing different proteins that would be on the side of a bacterial cell.
Okay.
And all bacteria have these natural enemies, but they're very specific. So all these viruses that exist, all the different types, that specificity is really, really intricate. So most viruses can only infect just one species or very small number of different types of bacteria.
Reality then, on the surface of the bacteria, it's not like you can just, if you're a virus, you can just invade anywhere you like.
Yeah, exactly. So bacteriophages, they can only they don't infect humans, animals, plants or fungi. They will just infect bacteria. And then within that, as you can see, you've just infected that bacteria with lots of viruses that don't infect it.
This is...
You keep putting more in.
There's only one true connection.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
I understand.
Have you not played the version of this in which it's a pirate in a barrel and you put swords into it, and then because the thing happens.
There are similarities.
Hold on, there's so many. Hold on,
you're close. You're pretty. There's only one left of I think that you haven't tried.
This is not 10 to the power of 31 of these. There's really only one left I haven't tried. This one here.
Oh, you've never played this game before.
Never. Have you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But as I said, it's a pirate in a barrel, and he pops up at exactly the right time.
There it is.
So you infected that bacteria with the appropriate bacteriophage, and you released.
Oh, I see.
So that's what bacteriophages do.
And then it spat out all of these other viruses.
Yeah. So this is a previous virus that's gone in there, and it's taken over that replication, like we talked about, and made lots of viruses within that bacterial cell, and then they burst out, and then they'll infect other bacteria and more bacteria. So that's the way that they're.
But now, I mean, your lunch date with this virus is suddenly looking.
I'm getting on very well with the virus at this stage. We've chatted about, I said, I think you're alive. And I won him over. I've also clearly gendered him. I've won him over. And now I'm training him to attack a bacteria I don't like.
Exactly. So viruses that infect bacteria can be very useful for us because we have a lot of problems now with antimicrobial resistance. There's more and more bacteria we can't treat. So anything you go to your GP for and you ask for antibiotics, chest infection, skin infection, that's becoming very hard actually for doctors to give you antibiotics that still work in many contexts. So we need new treatments. I think at the moment, most recent figures said that 8,000 people in the UK died from an antibiotic-resistant infection. So it's becoming more and more problematic. So where are we going to find new ways to treat bacteria? Well, we can actually just harvest these guys. These guys are just there. And they were actually discovered before antibiotics were discovered. But they're quite complicated due to the specificity that you showed when you tried to find the right hole. Because you have to get exactly the right bacteriophage to target the right bacteria. So this is why there was considered to be a more complicated thing to actually develop as a treatment, which is why we focused on antibiotics.
And does the fact that it's now becoming... is urgent the way we describe it now, or more increasingly urgent, mean that we may, if we put the resources into it, this may be a solvable problem?
We have another chance at this. So at the moment we're working together as phage biologists. So we're working together with doctors who are getting increasingly desperate to be able to treat their patients. So we're working to collect the data that we need to be able to convince the regulators and for them to become a mainstream medicine. They are used in some places actually already. They're used in Georgia and Tbilisi and former USSR. This is one of the places where bacteriophages were discovered, and they never stopped using them actually. So they still treat hundreds of people per year with bacteriophages, but they're not available as a treatment in the UK.
And we can manufacture, we can engineer, we can model a virus depending on what bacteria we want to attack. Is that difficult to do?
Well, first of all, we can just find them. We don't need to necessarily engineer them. We may have to engineer them down the line. But the main thing is, if we know what bacteria are causing us problems, like for example, E. coli is a very common thing, causes urinary tract infections, burn wounds, and so we can actually grow those bacteria, and then we can find the right viruses initially and try to understand which, because there's as we said, thousands of different types of viruses, so we can work out which ones kill most effectively, and then we can make products that contain those viruses that we can give as treatments to people.
And presumably it becomes an incredibly targeted attack as well.
Yeah.
Because they're not going, as we can see there, it's not going to open any other bacteria.
No, absolutely. So unlike an antibiotic, where you take an antibiotic and you feel kind of rough for some days after, it kills all the good bacteria as well as the bacteria that you're trying to target. The bacteriophages will just take out that one pathogen, that one bacteria that's causing a problem that you want to get rid of. So they're highly specific targeted treatment that can be used to treat both antibiotic resistant bacteria and also sometimes just where where it's difficult to reach an area of the body, like a bladder or inside a wound or something. It's quite hard to get antibiotics to that area. So again, phages are very useful in that context.
There are other ways that you can use viruses in clinical settings, right?
Yeah. I mean, certainly we can use viruses to deliver gene fixes, as it were. So we know that there's a whole host of different viruses that are currently being studied in clinical trials. Some have been approved for use, where they can deliver a gene into a cell which has a genetic defect, fix that genetic defect, and therefore bring about a cure.
And viruses are absolutely essential.
And viruses are essential to do that. They are the things that deliver the genetic information into the cell, because we're harnessing what a virus just wants to do naturally.
Get into the cell.
Get into the cell, replicate itself, deliver its genetic material into that cell.
Amazing. Do you think the future of medicine is going to, depend substantially on our use of viruses?
Well, if you think about a lot of the research that goes on in labs all around the world, most of that research takes advantage of one enzyme. So these are proteins that basically do a job, they have a function. But most of the research in labs relies on an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. So that is an enzyme that comes from these retroviruses. We've heard so much about them. These are the ones that are invading your genome. But this particular enzyme can turn RNA, which is the kind of reading the blueprint to make proteins, but it can turn it from RNA back into DNA. And it's the DNA that we find most useful when we're doing experiments. So we can put that DNA into bacteria and grow lots and lots of copies of it. We can then take that DNA out and make lots and lots of a protein, a vaccine, for example, against a disease. So this one particular enzyme underpins so much of the research in every lab around the world that if we removed it, I'm not sure where we'd be. But also even things like, we are taming viruses to our advantage. So a lot of the vaccine research that's going on.
I'm sorry to take maybe taking too positive view on this, but it feels we're entering the age of the virologist. You're perfectly placed for this. And at some point, if this works out, we'll be looking back on antibiotics as a fairly clumsy tool.
I think we will. I think if we can get bacteriophages right, we'll look back and think antibiotics were just something that distracted us from developing bacteriophages properly.
Hold on a second, Tara O'Brien. We started this with you wearing a virus is bad t-shirt, refusing to talk to them, destroying their reputation on national radio, and now here he is.
The best little buddies we have.
I think that we have long neglected the benefits of viruses, and we still are. But I wrote a paper a few years ago for the Journal of Virology, which was called Move Over Bacteria, because viruses are now making their mark as mutualists. And so I think that the more that we understand the value of viruses and their usefulness, the more we'll use them for all kinds of things.
If viruses have gathered together and hired you all to act as PR, they have done very well.
An incredible job.
A fantastic job. Thank you for that. It's been genuinely, has changed my attitude enormously since. So it's been fantastic.
Right, take your t-shirt off.
I will. I'm going to burn the t-shirts. I'm reworking the t-shirts. Virus good. That's what I'm going to say. Some virus good. All right, let's do that. Yeah. Thank you to Jonathan Ball, Martha Cluckey and Marilyn Rusink.
Well, Dara O'Brien. We started off, you were wearing a t-shirt.
I've gone on a journey.
You were antiviruses.
I'm now knitting like little bunting with viruses on it, and I'm writing a song about them, like a jingle for them.
You're organising a march.
Oh, absolutely.
You intend to the 31 viruses following you down the street?
Yeah, very slowly, just stomping along on the virusy legs. And then people then saying, whoa, we still have the cold, and I'll go, oh yeah, fair point, and I'll have to take a more measured view.
Is that what it is then, Dara? Do you just agree with the last person who spoke to you?
Yeah, they were really, really convincing, those people.
They kind of were, actually.
Yeah.
I'll join you on your march.
If you want to be notified as soon as a new episode is released, make sure you're subscribed to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on.
Hello, I'm Amol Rajan, and from BBC Radio 4, this is Radical. We are living through one of those hinge moments in history when all the old certainties crumble and a new world struggles to be born. So the idea behind this podcast is to help you navigate it.
What's really changed is the volume of information. That has exploded.
And also by offering a safe space for the radical ideas that our future demands.
Go to the Chancellor and say, radically cut the taxes of those with children.
Telling our stories is powerful and a radical act.
Listen to Radical with Amol Rajan on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
You're about to listen to a brand new episode of Curious Cases. Shows are going to be released weekly, wherever you get your podcasts. But if you're in the UK, you can listen to the latest episodes first on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science.
Hannah, what is our question this week?
We've got one in from a young curio this week. Here we go. Have a listen to this.
My name's Kobe. I'm 9 years old and I live in the Isle of Wight. My question is, what's the shiniest thing in the world/universe?
Right, two things to say about that. One, absolutely loving that he's saying his punctuation out loud. World/universe, really into that, Kobe. Secondly, shiny thing. I mean, that could mean lots of different stuff.
Yeah, it does actually. Now, my head always goes to diamonds, shiny things, particularly loose, by which I mean not stuck in a ring, like just on a cloth in a bag.
Like a bag of diamonds.
Like a bag of diamonds, like whatever.
Have you been in a room with a bag of diamonds?
I've been in a room with a bag of diamonds. Have you not been in a room
Sorry,
with a bag of diamonds?
I mean, I know you're a big deal.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like whatever. I like my liquidity to be...
Portable,
and they say so, whatever, and diverse. No, I had to buy a diamond once, and they go and they show you the diamond.
Oh.
And they say, well, how about this? And they genuinely are incredible. They're the best shiny thing, but they're not necessarily the most shiny thing.
Look, we could do an entire episode on diamonds because I sort of think diamonds are nonsense.
Okay, we'll park the diamonds idea.
Park the diamonds, okay.
The fact that he said universe as well, hello Kobe, the fact that he said universe as well makes me think that we might get distracted down into just stars.
Like shining stars.
Yeah.
But he didn't say brightest, he said shiniest.
Yes, nor did he say luminous.
No, this is shiniest, which I think has to mean that if you shine something onto it, it's how much it reflects back. So mirrors reflect it. Mirrors.
Mirrors.
What are you going to do half an hour on mirrors? Which is
that sounds absolutely
useful because we've booked two guests who know all about them.
Oh, did you book? Because I booked two diamond merchants.
Okay.
My two regular diamond merchants.
Incidentally, if you'd like to ask us a question about diamonds, you can send in your questions to curiouscases@bbc.co.uk.
Yeah, I might be in Rotterdam where I do most of my diamond merchanting, but I'll come back for it specially. Well, luckily we've two experts on mirrors in with us. First we've Stuart Reid, who's a professor at the University of Strathclyde.
And we also have Dr. Felix Flicker, who's a theoretical physicist from the University of Bristol. Now, okay, Felix, What colour are mirrors?
Well, that's a very good question.
Thank you. I've been wondering this for a while.
I've been confused about this since I was a child. I had this written on a folder at school. I'd wondered about this all the time. What colour is a mirror? I kept thinking about it. The best I could come up with as an answer was, well, what sound is a wall? Because, I mean, a wall is kind of like a sound mirror, and you don't really think a wall has a sound, right? And in some sense, you don't think a mirror has a colour. But then you also think a mirror is kind of silver, right?
But then, well, exactly. If it's a physical object, surely it has to have a colour.
Well, okay. I've been given here a couple of mirrors to find this out.
Mm-hmm.
I am a theoretical physicist, as you said.
This is an experiment.
And this is an experiment, and famously...
You're immediately going to drop the mirror. It'll smash.
Should we try it out? We've got 2 mirrors here.
Let's do it.
And we're going to try and point them towards each other and have a look.
Why do we need 2?
Well, I think what we're going to do is try and set up a load of reflections between the mirrors, so the light's going to bounce back and forth a load of times. Mm-hmm. And if there's any sort of colour coming from it, it's going to be essentially enhanced by this process, right? Because if you look at it once, maybe it's a bit silvery. Maybe if you look straight on, it looks kind of like there's no colour. But if you do it loads of times, maybe you'll start to see the colour coming out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Because, of course, if you're looking in a mirror, it's just reflecting the exact colours that are appearing back at you. So it doesn't have a colour.
Well, you'd like to think that's the case, but also I think most mirrors, like you'd find in your house, aren't actually perfect.
Okay, go on then. So do this.
Okay, so let's give it a go. All right.
Okay, so what if I turn around?
So you've got a mirror in front of you and a mirror behind you, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of like the setup that you would have at a hairdresser's if you were looking at the back of your head.
Oh, I'm glad you're saying this to me like I have any... How does the back of my head look? It looks as bald as the front of your head.
Okay, I look progressively sicker as I go through. It's sort of like mirror infinity. That's what we've created.
Yes,
here.
yeah. When you say sicker in is there a colour attached to this?
I would say paler and greener.
Just
as
about.
They go down and down and down.
It is, yeah. I think sicker is the best way to describe it, but yeah, it's slightly greener, darker, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely darker.
Okay.
So what does that mean in terms of the physics of it?
Okay, so these normal bathroom type mirrors that we have here, they're not reflecting perfectly, and clearly the more reflections we get, the greener the light appears to be. Mm. So I'd say probably the reason for this in these cases is that so these mirrors, they have a reflective bit on the back, but then they have some glass on the front protecting that bit. And the glass is essentially green. Like if you look through enough glass, you'd see light through it would be green. So we're kind of seeing through loads of different bits of glass here because it's bouncing back and forth, and every time it goes through some more glass,
gets a bit more green.
Okay,
but we have an answer then. So mirrors are green.
A bit green, but you also kind of think they're a bit silver, don't you? When you look at it at an angle, you kind of think that's silver. And it is reflecting off metal, and in a sense you could say metal is silver, but I admit I'm still confused about this point. I'm not really convinced they're silver. I think they're shiny, a little bit green.
Okay, one thing we can say though, if the image is getting darker and darker and darker as you go further off into sort of the infinite reflection,
yes.
that must mean that less light is being reflected each time, presumably.
Yeah, you're losing some every time, exactly.
And do we have an idea of how much light sort of a standard bathroom mirror will reflect?
Between about 60 and 90%.
Okay, right. Which is shiny, but not that shiny.
Yeah, and you can see how that would degrade over time. However, can I ask a more fundamental question?
Please do.
What is it? It's a piece of glass. So what have you added to this piece of glass that makes it a mirror?
Well, you've added a bit of metal behind it. That's the main bit. So the reflecting bit really is the metal on the back. So that could
the glass isn't the mirror.
The glass isn't the mirror, no.
What's the glass doing?
Well, it's protecting the metal. In olden times, you would make mirrors out of just polishing metal, right? But then the surface would degrade with time, it would tarnish. So silver makes a good mirror, but silver gets a kind of grotty surface after a while and goes black, and then it becomes a bit of a rubbish mirror. So the glass is stopping that happening, for example.
So the glass is only there to protect the metal behind us. That's
Tell me more about the physics of what's actually happening. So like a packet of light comes in, hits this reflective surface. What is different down at the subatomic level?
I mean, the simplest way to think of it is, light is an electromagnetic wave, and it's got an electric field waggling up and down and a magnetic field waggling side to side, for example. And when it comes in towards a metal, the electric field's waggling up and down, and it finds a load of electrons that can conduct, right? Because metals are good conductors. So this waggling electric field causes the electrons in the metal to waggle up and down, and waggling an electron up and down generates an electromagnetic field again. So it generates light. The light comes in, wobbles the electrons, and that generates light that goes back out again. So that's why metals make good mirrors generally, because they're good conductors, electrical conductors.
That's so interesting.
There are loose electrons basically in the metal.
That's right.
And they can absorb shake around, and then emit. But emit it at exactly the right angle. It comes off, bouncing off, comes in at 45, goes off at 45.
Yes, that's what you'd expect. There's a complicated explanation, which is you stick it into Maxwell's equations that tell you how light and electrons interact, and you find that it does it at exactly the right angle. But, I mean, essentially it's conservation of momentum, I suppose. Light has momentum. If it comes in at a certain angle, then when it bounces off, you'd like to conserve momentum in much the way that when you throw a ball at the floor at an angle, it bounces off, and it should go at roughly the same angle in the opposite direction. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, absolutely. It feels slightly miraculous that it does it exactly the same amount so that we can see something coherently coming off it. It's
definitely one of those things where it's like, innately, of course I know that reflections are possible, but once you really start thinking about it, it feels like a magic trick.
Yeah, it does. It does. And an incredibly lucky event that this is how it works, and we can shave or whatever. Check the back of our heads in a salon, I'm going to say. I don't even got salons anymore.
The only ones I go to.
Yeah.
The ones that say it in a French accent.
I know a good mirror. In fact, there's 7 of them. The Giant Magellan Telescope, which is currently being built in Chile in the Atacama Desert. A lot of great astronomy stuff is done in the Atacama Desert because it's incredibly clear sky and incredibly cloudless. And so there's 7 giant mirrors that they have there. They're each 8.4 meters in diameter.
Whoa.
And they've been polished for 2 years.
By one person?
Just one guy goes in every day, starts at 8 o'clock,
16
clocks in, takes another little bit, takes out a little cloth, rub. Eventually uses the cloth up, buys another cloth. They'd love it to have done faster, but that's how long it takes. That's what he says.
Hey, look, if you want to do science properly.
Do you know what I mean? Like
why do they have that many mirrors? Why are they that big?
They're that big to gather light, and then they reflect it all into a point. So this basically has 7 huge mirrors, and they're all focused into one point. So it's not it's similar to if you went to a telescope shop and bought a telescope and bought a reflecting telescope. It does the same thing. It all comes in a big wide aperture and then bounce, and then they all get pushed into one point. But this is just doing it on a mammoth scale, with a really shiny mirror that one guy did for 2 years, and now is sitting in the desert. It actually hasn't been built yet, but it would be sitting in the desert, and you're kind of going, he must be going, oh, it's covered in dust now. Can I go in and have a look at it? Like, this is they presumably have thought of this, and there's a mechanism by which.
You would hope so.
But like, we've done this before. Like we've stuck mirrors in space. Hubble is a mirror. The James Webb uses mirrors and they're incredibly precise mirrors. Unbelievably precise mirrors, some that are suctioned into place. The reason I had to repair the Hubble is because one of the parts of the mirrors wasn't quite aligned, and so they set an entire mission up to replace that one part of the mirror. So it's astonishing how precise we can get these. More than we need in the bathroom.
Subtly more. Thing is that actually that mirrors with like a metallic reflective surface on the back and then glass on top, that is not the only way to shinily reflect light, because there is actually a different kind of mirror altogether, some that you can find in a quite familiar place. So here is engineer Quinn Sanford, who is talking about a kind of super shiny film which is called the Enhanced Specular Reflector, produced by his company 3M.
So, enhanced specular reflector is a multi-layer optical film. It's about the thickness of a piece of paper. It typically goes into mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, on the back side of an LCD backlight. Inside of a LCD backlight is LEDs that run on one edge. Every bit of light that's created by that LED, we want to get to the viewer. The more efficient the display is, the less battery power is required. A typical bathroom mirror could be anywhere from 60 to 90% reflective. Our ESR is 99%, so there is very little loss. It's made up of hundreds of tiny layers, just different types of plastics with a different index of refraction. Each of those layers help reflect a different portion of the visible spectrum. There's about 600 layers. So you can imagine how thick each of those layers are. We're talking tens of nanometers. But if you were able to actually remove one layer, it would look like a thin, clear piece of plastic.
Okay, so we actually have some of that here. that my producer has handed me. Well, Stuart, you describe this to me.
Yeah, so we work with these types of materials, and it's a strange concept sometimes to get your head around, because these are completely transparent materials that don't have a particular colour, but when they're very, very thin, they can interact with this wave property of light. So we heard Felix talking about the wavelength of light, and so you can set up these very thin layers to reflect those waves in such a way that they can add up or combine in reflection, but they try to cancel each other if they tried to propagate further into the material. And then so you get a very strong reflection. You see a nice mirror surface. I mean, these
Let's have a little look at this.
reflective films are really impressive, because it just looks like a thin kind of acetate, I'm showing my age there,
So
thin plastic sheet. But it's a beautiful bathroom mirror.
I am just peeling off the backing of this, and that's very, very reflective.
That is astonishingly reflective.
I think it is a magic trick. You have loads and loads of layers of see-through stuff that eventually...
And how light is that in your hand?
Extraordinary. I think I haven't even taken off both bits of backing. Hang on, I think it's...
And that is 99% reflective. Weirdly, watching you handle it is, if you've ever seen the film Terminator 2, it has that effect of you're watching essentially like a liquid, like a...
You're absolutely right. It's like watching reality through a liquid.
Yeah, it is. It's incredibly thin, incredibly light, and unbelievably reflective. And there's a sheet of this, presumably the size of my phone screen, within the phone.
Something like this, or this film, is in everybody's phone.
All of these different layers, these sort of invisible layers that have different refractive indexes, what does that actually mean in terms of the physics of it?
So it's useful to think about the wall analogy that Felix started us with. When we think about sound bouncing off a wall, why does that happen? When sound moves through the air, it encounters something with a greater density, like the wall, you get a reflection of that sound. And light has a similar effect. It's a wave. It travels through materials. When it passes from a material with one density to another density, so higher to lower, or lower to higher, then you're going to get a reflection at that interface. And so what this film does very cleverly is lots of tiny little layers which have different densities, different refractive indexes, which basically is telling you that the speed of light through those layers is different at in each material. And at each interface you get a reflection, and if you can tune those really cleverly, you can reflect all the different colours. The analogy which often people refer to is oil on water. I mean, oil is not rainbow colour. If you have a tub of oil, you'll struggle to see, but then when it becomes very thin, you get this interference effect, and it starts interfering with the visible wavelengths of light, and you see those oil colours. And all you're doing with these reflective films is very precisely controlling the thickness of each of these layers of different material, so that you reflect the colours that you want. And in this case, they've tried to make it so it reflects as much of the visible spectrum as possible.
Extraordinarily clever. But hang on a second, Felix. You were talking about metals and the sort of electromagnetic properties of metals. That's plastic.
Right.
What's going on with the electrons in that?
Not much. This isn't working by the same mechanism as the metals. It's totally different. As Stuart was saying, this is like a structural property. So really you have a load of things that reflect somewhat well. Each one's doing okay. But the trick is that you get interference between the light reflecting off all these different mirrors into the different layers, each of which isn't particularly good, but together they add up in a powerful way. So the way to think of it, I think, is you can think of like water waves, and if you send a water wave along, it's got these peaks and troughs. And if you send another water wave along, maybe they meet head on. Where two peaks meet, where they're both going up at the same time, that will be basically twice as high. And similarly, when they both go down at the same time, that's twice as low. On the other hand, you can do it so that when one's going up, the other one's going down, and then they'll kind of cancel out. So light is doing that. You can think of light as a wave, and you're getting the light reflecting from these different layers, and you can essentially, they tune it, the thickness of these layers, so that you get the two waves going up at the same time. But then they do it not with 2, but 3, 4, 5, and then hundreds, and you get this brilliant reflection effect.
Amazing.
It's an incredible thing. I mean, and playing with this, which is what you do,
of course,
because we're not sticking it into phones or being useful engineers about this, is like holding your own funhouse mirror.
It is.
Yeah, because it's incredibly clear, and then all of a sudden, and then you'll go, look at that's really weird, and suddenly it'll go straight, and you've an amazingly clear shot of your own eyes staring at you, and it's actually kind of frightening. It's fun. Oh, that's who I am now. Really sharply.
If you put glass on top of that, would it be noticeably more reflective than these bathroom mirrors?
We can give it a go.
Well, like if you mounted this in your bathroom, for example, would it be brighter than the bathroom mirror that you have at the moment?
I think it probably should be.
Yeah, because it'll bounce more light out.
You might do even better if you put a kind of normal mirror behind it as well, because it is actually letting some light through.
Mirror layers, that's what I'm going for. I'm stealing the rest of that envelope.
That's phenomenal stuff I go with. And if I could get that and the guy who polishes the one in Chile to come around once a week and just give it a once over, this is the one. I mean, because it's striking actually when you're used to looking at 60 to 90% of a bathroom mirror, or if you've ever looked into an antique mirror and they're slightly duller, when you look into this, it is astonishingly bright. As well as clarity, just the amount of light you're getting back is really noticeable.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
Is that the best that we can do then, 99%?
I think we can do a bit better.
I mean, there are other places where we need really, really precise mirrors. I mean, you know LIGO, don't you?
Yeah.
LIGO is the, we have to, from first principles.
Gravitational wave detector.
Gravitational wave detector, right? Which is big L-shaped tubes. I say L-shaped. There are two of them.
See it?
Two of them. I've never been to see it, no. And it's one of those kind of bucket list things. Not that they do tours as such, but I will contrive a documentary. So they're 90 degrees to each other, these two tubes, and there's lasers fired along the tubes, and they need to be reflected back again, incredibly precisely, because every so often the universe sends this whoop kind of like bit that one of them warps, one of them changes or extends lengths because of gravitational waves.
Yeah, so my understanding of this is you have one laser, it splits. I'm looking to you, Felix. You can correct us here. You have one laser that splits, goes off down a tunnel.
Right.
The other tunnel is at exactly right angles to it.
Yeah.
Gets bounced off a mirror, comes back, and then it's like your water analogy. Ordinarily, these two halves of the laser should cancel each other out. But if there is a
whoop, whoop.
Thank you very much.
It's especially if I can see this when I do the sound of the thing going like a stone dropping in a pool, and you see the wave, the surface vibrating. It's
Absolutely.
like that,
but space-time.
But space-time, yeah, imperceptible to a space-time.
But when that happens to space-time, one of the arms will stretch, one of them will shrink, and so the two bits of laser won't perfectly cancel each other out.
Yeah, so that's a good way to look at it, yeah.
But the mirrors, I mean, we're talking seriously reflective mirrors.
Also, should point out that the two tunnels that we find them down are 4 kilometres long.
Are they?
Yeah. But the mirrors for these are insane. In fact, here's the lady responsible for this at LIGO to tell us a bit more.
So my name is Gary Lynn Billingsley, and I manage the Optical Sciences group here at LIGO. And I get to work with some of the most beautiful mirrors in the world. So LIGO is set up to measure gravitational wave radiation. Now, these mirrors are ideally free-floating in space. And so as a gravitational wave comes along, space-time changes a little bit, and the mirrors appear to be closer or further apart. And the mirrors have to be highly reflective because this light needs to bounce back and forth across this 4 kilometers, over 100 times. So it needs to be a nearly perfect reflection. And our mirrors are designed for a single color of light, 1064 nanometers. So this is just beyond the visible, what you can see. It's slightly into the infrared. But they're designed to reflect all but maybe 5 parts per million. So that means 0.000005 of the light can leak through. We couldn't use them at all if they were 95% reflective. Just all the leak, you would shoot some light into the cavity and it would all leak out within a bounce or, 5, however many, and you'd have nothing.
I mean, that's pretty perfect. Apparently about $2 million to produce, 40 kilograms in weight. Stuart, how do you make these?
Yeah, so they start off with a lump of glass, but they're very ultra pure glass, and on the front surface we deposit actually in a vacuum at the atomic level multiple layers of material which have these high and low index, different refractive index, and we have usually around 30 or so layers of material, and then after that, that's about 4 or 5 microns thick, so still a very, very thin layer. But you can build up an optical interference effect that gets you what we call 5 nines reflectivity, so 99.999% reflective, albeit, as was said, at one wavelength or one colour of light. But yeah, far more reflective than your bathroom mirror. And then that allows you to bounce light back and forward between mirrors many, many times, and then look for these tiny stretching and squeezing of space-time that Einstein predicted.
I've seen the pictures of them, though, and they're huge slabs of glass. I know they're very precision glass, but still, we talked about how you want to get away from having glass. Glass isn't the thing that's doing the reflecting. So why the need for so much glass for these?
There's a slightly more abstract answer to that, because from an optical point of view, when we just think about reflecting the light off this object, then of course you don't need a big thick piece of glass. But as was mentioned by Gary Lynn, we really want to have free-floating objects in space, not affected by gravity here on Earth or any disturbances.
If a truck goes past, you don't want the mirror to be off.
And so you end up being forced from a mechanical point of view, wanting to have a very heavy mirror suspended on very, very thin wires, so that in the horizontal direction, where that mirror would swing as a pendulum, it is essentially soft. So the mirror behaves like it's free-falling, albeit it's not free-falling in the vertical direction because you're holding it with very thin wires. So for other reasons, you actually want the mirror to be very, very heavy. And another reason for this is that there's a principle in physics called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Many people have heard of this when you think about trying to measure something at a very, very small level. That Heisenberg said that you try to measure it so precisely, at some point you end up pushing on it, and so you try to measure the position, but you end up imparting momentum, and there's this uncertainty. And actually that also affects us with these mirrors, and to get around that, you just need to make the mirror heavier. So these 40 kilogram mirrors behave also like quantum particles, and so their position uncertainty is related to their mass. And so there's several reasons why we want them to be heavy, but not in terms of the light that's being reflected off them.
Yeah, it's more the fact that you're doing the experiment here, for one thing, rather than where you'd ideally be doing it floating out somewhere in space.
Okay, this sounds like the 5 nines mirror in LIGO. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good candidate for the shiniest thing in the universe, I would say.
Can I put in a proviso, though? Because it only reflects a certain part of light.
If you're cheating.
If you were to stand in front of it and just look at it, would you see anything?
So it usually looks either a pinky colour or a green colour, depending on the angle you're looking at it. But you never see something that looks like a perfect silver mirror.
Rubbish for
I'm dismissing that from the game. That
also, $2 million each.
Yeah. And 40 kilograms. Come on, what's going on here?
If you got any candidates, then, if we're still looking for the shiniest thing in the universe.
Okay, it's a bit out there. Are you happy with an out there answer?
Hey, have you heard about the conversation we've just been having?
Okay, my answer as to what the shiniest thing in the universe is a pint of beer.
Right.
Or a glass of water would do as well.
Go on.
Okay, so if you look in, a glass of water is probably easiest if it's a bit cold and you hold it. Have you ever noticed you see your fingerprints very nicely on the inside? Okay, so you're seeing kind of the ridges of your fingerprints. But the bits where you're not seeing the fingerprint, you're just getting a perfect mirror reflecting back to you. So what's happening there is a process called total internal reflection. So the light is heading in through the glass. When it tries to leave the glass to exit the glass back into the air, it can get reflected back essentially perfectly. Now, if there weren't air on the outside, it were in the vacuum of space, then this reflection would be actually perfect, according to theoretical physics.
But wait, how does the light know that there's air on the other side to travel to?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, okay, it's the same answer that why do I see the ridges of my fingerprint in this process? How does it know the fingerprints are there? So it's a very interesting phenomenon. You can explain it using quantum mechanical tunneling. So you can say that the light tunnels quantum mechanically into your the ridges of your fingers, and so then you lose those bits of light. But the bits where there were the kind of troughs in your fingerprints, it doesn't do that because they're already so far away the light can't tunnel. So then it reflects back And in the vacuum of space, it would be more than 5 nines. It would be truly perfect.
Here's what I'm hearing about that explanation.
Yeah.
Something, 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 magic.
Yeah. I'm hearing something, pint in space. That's sort of all I got. And I see myself raising a pint and going, see that? Total internal reflection.
It's happened to all of us.
Yeah. Well, we've all totally internally reflected while holding a pint at some stage. But it feels that is, while theoretically the one, it feels like that's not going to really work. Because our caller is 9 years old and not in space. So there are many contextual issues that aren't going to work for that yet.
You said it's like magic. I think, asking these questions of theoretical physicists, it's like asking a genie for wishes. You get what you ask for, but it's kind of useless. But, okay, I was thinking about this. You'd say, well, okay, if this is true, if this thing is really perfect, why don't we put that to some use? And the answer is we do put this to some use. We use this total internal reflection all the time in optical fibres, so fibre optics.
Because you're sending this beam of light, often many kilometres, and it's bouncing around inside, not coming out.
Exactly. So it's always at this very shallow angle to the surface, so that's what you want, and it's bouncing around, and it bounces essentially perfectly off the surface of the fibre optic cable. You think of it as like glass. You do lose some of the signal, but that's from travelling through the material on the inside, not from the reflections. Those bits are really perfect.
So there we go. We found the answer. It's slightly less satisfying than I was expecting. The shiniest thing in the universe, the inside of a fibre optic cable.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. All right, we'll give you that. I still think there are more romantic ones than that. But gentlemen, thank you. It's been an absolute
you rejected
pleasure.
The pint of beer in space, Dara. So.
I just felt that, I mean, of all the things you've got on the International Space Station, there isn't like kind of a patio area where you can sit out and have a pint and go, here's to you, Earth. I can't wait to get back. It doesn't work that way.
No, indeed.
No, sadly.
Well, thank you both for your contributions. Absolutely extraordinary discussion. Felix Blicker and Stuart Reid. I think the real answer then is going back to the shiny stuff, the 99.9%.
And of all light, not of just a very specific
cheating.
thing. Yeah, and isn't 40 kilograms in weight.
Absolutely.
And is genuinely quite brilliant.
Yeah.
And do we have a spare one?
We do have a spare one. Should we send it to Kobe?
Let's send it to Kobe. And we're not saying that everyone will get a free gift when we ask a question, but do send them in to curiouscases@bbc.co.uk. And you know what else I'll do? I get a guy in Chile. He'll polish it up. Subscribe to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and make sure you've got push notifications turned on, and we'll let you know as soon as new episodes are available.
From BBC Radio 4 comes Dough, examining the business behind profitable everyday products and what they might be like in the future. I'm the entrepreneur, Sam White. In each episode, I focus on things like TVs, hairdryers or vacuum cleaners, hearing firsthand from people who make them.
We still make products with DVD player built in, and you would be very surprised how many we sell.
Then our expert guests choose their favourite game-changing innovations which shape the products in the past before we follow the money to where they're going next.
Think of the TV 98-inch or 100-inch.
Dough makes the mundane marvellous again. Listen on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
This BBC podcast is supported by ads outside the UK.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
I'm Hannah Fry.
And I'm Dara O'Brien.
And this is Curious Cases.
The show where we take your quirkiest questions,
your crunchiest conundrums,
and then we solve them.
With the power of science.
I mean, do we always solve them?
I mean, the hit rate's pretty low.
But it is with science.
It is with science. We are joined today in the Curious Cases studio, not only by me and Dara O'Brien, whose drink you can hear clanking in the background, but also by two pieces of fruit.
Yeah, I was going to add them to the cocktail, but I can't now. Are they for scientific purposes?
I believe they are. Did you ever make a batch out of these when you were a kid?
You're waving an orange at me.
I am. Sorry. This is radio, isn't it?
Yeah. We forget these details.
You can hear the noises but can't see the pictures.
Yeah. I did not make a battery out of that. Sorry, I'm always terribly afraid of landing Ireland in any kind of stereotypical stance, but the potato thing we did, you make a clock out of a potato.
A clock?
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, you can, because it's the acid, isn't it? And now that I say it seems so much more obvious that we should have used lemons, but lemons clearly not as available when I was a child. They're mainly used for the scurvy thing. You can make a clock out of the acid in potatoes.
Sorry, I mean, I'm with you on the whole vegetables being batteries, etc.
Yeah.
But the clock element?
Oh, yeah, like a digital clock. It just needed a small amount of charge.
Right, so you actually need the electrical components.
It wasn't, no, I wasn't building it wasn't like a chronograph. It wasn't like we used
a sundial.
Yeah, we'd carve it into an arrow and then we'd place it so the shadow fell. Didn't you all do that? Did everyone make the pieces of a precision Swiss watch out of potato and then put them all together?
Yeah, no, you're right. You really have done wonders for the stereotypes of Irish culture. That's
anyway.
Well done,
okay,
yeah.
all right. So we should have used citrus, but who had citrus in Ireland in the 1970s? That's what you mean? They're using the acid, is it?
Yeah, you can make batteries out of lemons, which is essentially what this programme is about. But particularly, we had a really sweet question come in from Elijah Thomas, who wants to know, how many lemons would it take to power a spaceship?
Oh, wow. This is going to be a big number, isn't it?
I hope so.
I mean, if we find out it's just 4, it would take 4 lemons. That would be
I think it sort of surely depends on the size of the spaceship, you know? When you are confronted with a quest like this, of course the person to call is our old friend Randall Munro, the author of a book full of serious scientific answers to absurd real-world problems.
Hi.
Randall, okay. Have you ever made any fruit-based batteries yourself?
No, I haven't. I know it's a really common experiment in middle school chemistry class, but it was one of a couple of different things where I always heard about people making these for class, but no one ever told me, all right, this week your grade is based on if you can make a lemon battery. I also didn't get to do a volcano that erupted baking soda and vinegar.
Feels like you missed out on a significant portion of the fun part of science at school.
Yeah, exactly. But they still did make me dissect animals, which sort of put me off science a little bit for a while.
Because I think the dissecting animals is pan-culture. That goes across the globe.
But I never did it.
Oh, no, there was talk of it in our school, but there wasn't a supply of frogs. But the exploding volcano thing is such an American science fair thing. And it must be, because I grew up in a very geologically quiet region, that at no stage they want to train kids to make models of volcanoes. I
don't think I got to do that bit either. Thus far, I'm on 0 out of 3. All right, so we asked you the lemon-based science question, though, Randall. Anything that you can offer to help us?
Well, because my background's in physics, I'm always inclined to think about things in terms of what amount of energy is available. So if we're talking about using a lemon to provide power, you can throw them, you can eat them. Lemons have calories, not very many. Not a lot of people eat enough just raw lemons to get calories from them, but the calorie energy density is pretty high. You can burn a lemon if you manage to dry it out and get quite a bit of energy out of it that way. And so I usually like to think about just in a big picture, how much energy is here and then what are the ways to get at it?
I'm quite liking the direction you're going with this. Although for a moment there in the middle, I thought you were going to suggest that we have an army of people, feed them exclusively on lemons and have them hurl the rocket into space. Is that...
I mean, you can calculate how efficient that is as a process.
Really?
It's easy to look up. Sure, you could figure out if a person eats this many calories, they're doing this kind of exercise, here's how much work they can do. You can figure out the calories in a lemon. That's easy to look up. You can chain all these numbers together and you'll get an answer that's here's how many people pedaling could charge up a battery or pull back a spring and launch something. That's one of my favorite things about science and about mathematics is the physics doesn't care if the question you're asking is ridiculous or not. It provides you a way to get to the answer. Whether it's ridiculous or not is a judgment that's up to you.
Have you done these kind of calculations before?
Not with a lemon specifically.
But in terms of how many people?
I almost feel like muscle power is something where the limitation is not usually the chemical energy. It's the ability to convince that many people to work together. How do you convince people to pedal on a bicycle, to run a mechanism while eating only lemons? That feels like a management problem that's way beyond my ability to tackle.
Okay, so I don't know if we're going to go down that route. Of
I don't think we ever considered it. I mean, my go-to was this is like a battery like you'd have in the gift shop of a science museum, that this is essentially what we're going for. But the idea that we're just regarding lemons as a store of biomass in some way, that it just seems to me that we are in some sort of situation where all we have is lemons and a rocket, and we have no more efficient way.
This sounds like a dystopian view of the future.
Yeah, I mean, can we bury the lemons and have them turn into oil? I mean, if all we're doing is any kind of thought experiment, then surely there are other ways we can create sump from our lemons and then process it into something explosive.
I mean, this is very true. But okay, let's go back to the original sort of science experiment style, because lucky for us, we have current Guinness World Record holder for highest voltage from a fruit battery, Professor Saiful Islam, who's here with us in the studio.
And slightly, I feel desperately more, a really good job title, by the way, but just doesn't quite have that air to
pizzazz.
it. Professor Paul Shearing from the School of Engineering Science in Oxford University. See, that's great. It just doesn't have the Guinness World Record stamp on it. You research into emerging battery technologies, which often don't include lemons.
That's right, yeah. We do all kinds of flavours of different batteries, but they're not lemon-flavoured most of the time.
Is there one definition you'd give what defines a battery?
Yes, we need 2 electrodes and an electrolyte. So, bit of science jargon in there, but we need a positive electrode, a negative electrode, and something in between.
Yeah, when you get a battery and you plug it in, you see where there's a plus and a minus, and you know that something is running from the plus to the minus to the minus to the plus. But what's happening inside the battery? Because I suppose as a kid, I just presumed everything is in one end, there's nothing in the other end, and it desperately wants to balance that out. So all the electrons will run on the cable and they'll light your bulb, or they'll power the toy car or whatever.
Inside that battery, they've got ions moving from one electrode to the other, and there's a chemical reaction going on from one side to the other. In a primary battery, like the AA in your remote control, it just goes one way. In a rechargeable battery in your phone, a lithium-ion battery, that can be reversed. So it's like a shuttle between the two electrodes. So that actually, when you say what's inside, there's a good chemical reaction. I think lithium is a really nice one because it's the smallest and lightest metal ion in the periodic table. Basically, it loses that one electron, goes round. That lithium ion itself now, it's lithium plus, it's lost that electron. That now moves across from one electrode to the other.
So the negative bit's going one way through your device, the positive bit's going the other way through the battery.
Exactly, yeah.
Do they meet up again then at the other end?
Yes, in essence, yes.
Hey, pal, how you doing?
Yeah.
Haven't seen you. I've had a long old journey around this.
Exactly, they meet up at the other end. And what's
device.
lovely is that when you plug in your phone, you want to give it some more electrons, and that pushes the lithium ions back the other way.
Back the other way again.
Yeah.
It's ready to start the journey yet again.
Yes.
I like that idea of them both being at the edge of the battery and being like, okay, it's a race. Ready? Steady, go.
You go your way, I go their way. I'll get some stuff done that I'm not even sure is happening. I'm totally unaware of it. But when I come around, we meet up again, and there we go. Yeah. Okay, that's a much more vivid way to think about this, lads. But a lemon?
So if we take one lemon, and it doesn't really matter how big it is, you still end up with about 0.8, 0.9-ish volts, so a little bit less than 1 volt. And you've got your 2 electrodes, so we've got a copper electrode and we've got a zinc electrode. You could use different types of metals, but we've got zinc and copper here. So in this particular example, one electrode is losing electrons and the other one is gaining them. And so when we've got the race around the circuit, it's the electrons that are being lost from one part and they're being gained by the other part. So in the case of the lemon battery, we've got electrons that are moving to and from the electrodes, and we've got protons in the juice of our lemon, in our electrolyte, that's moving between one and the other. So you've got a race between protons and electrons in the case of our lemon battery.
Do they also meet up for the finish line again?
Not quite as neatly as the case of the lithium-ion battery, because it's a bit more complicated. In the case of the lemon, what we actually do is we have a reaction at the zinc electrode, which involves the zinc. But at the copper electrode, what we're really doing there is we're evolving small quantities of hydrogen. So you've got some protons in your lemon, in the acidic lemon,
Protons being the hydrogen...
Yeah, a hydrogen plus atom. So atom of hydrogen which has lost an electron and therefore it's become positive. So H plus is a proton. So we've got lots of these H plus protons in our acidic lemon. And when they arrive at the copper electrode, they pick up that available electron which has raced around the circuit, and then they generate a really small quantity of hydrogen gas. So if we had a tiny little microscope, we might be able to see bubbles of hydrogen going about.
That's great. That's lovely stuff. But lemons themselves, I mean, it's not like they're not electrically charged. They're not sitting there buzzing with electricity. When we put them into a circuit, that creates the whole thing. It creates this reaction.
We need these two dissimilar metals and the full circuit and the acid in the lemon. Bring them all together and we've got a very basic battery.
And a very, very low power battery as well.
Really low power, yeah. So again, if we get the voltmeter out, we can measure the voltage, we can measure the current, and from that we can calculate the power. And it's a really small amount.
How many lemons does it take to power up a little calculator?
So the little calculator that I got in front of me, which is a really basic sort of desktop calculator, it would normally take one AA battery. But if we want to do it on lemon batteries, we've got to have 3 of them.
Okay, so can we just keep adding more lemons?
We did, yep.
Tell us about this world record.
I was invited and very honoured and surprised to give the Royal Institution Christmas lectures. And in one of those lectures, we had to talk about energy storage. And we demonstrated that with a classic school experiment, a lemon battery. And we want to show how battery worked, and you can stick in a copper electrode and a zinc electrode and generate a voltage. But I didn't want to use just 3 lemons to power a calculator. We wanted to go very large, and we did go very large. We bought 1,600 lemons. We cut them in half, and we generated 1,400 volts based on that. So that was a world record at that time. I should add that 2 years after that, a group in Denmark broke our record. So I wasn't feeling bitter or sour about that. But the Royal Society of Chemistry approached me before COP26, said, Seifel, we want to do something around energy. And I said, I want that record back. So we then used 3,000 lemons and got to 2,400 volts. But as we've just stated, the amount of power is minute. That generated only 2 watts of power. I mean, less than an ordinary light bulb. So it's but
okay.
But I have got the world record. I have got the world record for the highest voltage from a fruit battery.
If you ran your calculator off the lemons for a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, the inside of the lemon, what's up with that? Is it just not acid anymore?
Well, that is a good question. And actually, one of these manky old lemons that's sitting in front of me is an experiment that I did at the weekend, and you can see that the lemons become really kind of discoloured. And if you were to look at the electrode as well, the electrodes become pretty manky as well. So they don't last for a very long time. So you get a small amount of power for a really short amount of time. So they don't make the best battery in the world.
This is not looking good for our dystopian future of eating only lemons.
Yeah.
Or just getting to that space shuttle as well. Yeah.
Hang on. Why lemons, though? Are lemons the only fruit?
No, you could use oranges. You could use a potato. It doesn't even have to be a fruit.
Yeah.
I mean, the good thing about lemons and limes and oranges is that they're, as everyone knows, quite acidic. So actually, that acid environment that we would think of as being a good electrolyte, obviously we find inside the citric acid in a lemon.
What about a pineapple?
Could do a pineapple. I tried it with a strawberry at the weekend. That worked pretty well as well. So, yeah, I mean, anything that's got some level of acidity and those protons available, you can make a battery.
What about sour sweets? That those. I think
Tangfastics.
Yeah, Tangfastics, or those those toxic sludges ones that kids eat.
Probably you might maybe grind them up and dissolve them in some water if it was
they'd be
acidic
quite
enough.
acidic. Yeah.
I think, Randa, a future where everyone can only eat fizzy sweets is probably going to solve your management problem.
Yes, and my stockpile of Sour Patch Kids will finally be useful for something other than rotting my teeth.
Sorry.
Right, you worked at NASA for a while, so you have been there when these spacecraft have been launched. So do we have any idea of how much power we're talking about here?
The interesting thing is that powering a spaceship itself does not necessarily take a lot of power. There are a number of spacecraft right now, and many of them use ion engines. And those are very low power. You're just sort of shooting electrons or, charged particles off into space. But you can run it for a long time using the solar panels, and they'll produce just a very small amount of thrust. But small amounts of thrust over a long time is plenty to get yourself around the solar system. The big problem is getting off of the surface of the Earth. Because to do that, you need a whole lot of power really quickly. Because if you just do a small amount of thrust for a long period of time upward, you're not going to go anywhere. People talk about building giant cannons, space elevators, this project involving propelling spacecraft with nuclear bombs. But all of those are still, theoretical, because chemical rockets, the fuel we use, kerosene, which has about the same energy density, I think, as, some dried foods, those fuels have just more energy density in a smaller amount of space than anything else that we can build a rocket with. Even with the high energy density of rocket fuel, we are barely able to get rockets into space. You see a rocket sitting on the launch pad, and most of what you're looking at is fuel tanks, because the rocket is mostly fuel and only a small payload. I was thinking about this recently, that if you have a planet that had just surface gravity that's twice as high as Earth's, and there are planets like this that we are finding in other solar systems now, a planet with just surface gravity just a little higher than Earth would make chemical rockets not just hard, but maybe impossible to get off the surface with.
So how much, Paul, for example, how much power does a typical spacecraft use?
So I did a bit of Googling, looked up on NASA at the space shuttle, which has obviously now been retired, but according to NASA, 44 million horsepower, which you can convert to watts or kilowatts, but 44 million horsepower is what it takes to get the space shuttle off the ground.
So we know what it is in horsepower. What is that in watts?
So 44 million horsepower is about 33 million kilowatts.
Kilowatts, okay. So that's 32 million thousand watts.
That's
lovely.
Right, yep.
And then the other figure we had for watts earlier on was for 3,000 lemons, you created how many watts of power?
Just 2 watts.
Okay. I'm going to write those two numbers down. I'm going to put a greater than symbol between them, because 32 million thousand watts is bigger than 2.
It is.
By some distance.
Just for anyone who's a bit rusty on their mental arithmetic.
Yeah. So how many lemons is that?
So back of the envelope calculation, I reckon it's about 138 trillion.
Oh, okay.
How many lemons are there in the world?
So I also looked this up as well, and I reckon, according to some statistics website, there are about 21 million tonnes of lemons that are grown every year. And if you think that every one of those weighs about 50 grams, it means that we need 329 years worth of lemon production.
I think it's worth it. I think let's do it, everybody.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.
Randall, can I come to you on this? If we decide as a planet to move all of our production to lemons, can you foresee any other problems with this?
No, I think that sounds like a great idea. I tried there's that miracle fruit that you can get that makes sour things taste sweet. It's like a tablet that dissolves. I tried that, and if you do that, you can eat a raw lemon and it tastes okay, but I think it's still not great for your teeth. The only way I've enjoyed eating pure lemons is when they're like candied or caramelized, and you've added a fair bit of sugar to them. So I would think you're going to use a large chunk of the planet for growing lemons, but I think we want some sugar cane or some other source of sugar so that we can add that to the lemons and make them more palatable. Because if I'm eating lemons for 300 years, I'm going to have to add a little bit of seasoning to them.
Surely sugar is more energy dense than lemons.
Yes. Well, we're not proposing, I don't think, Randall, that you eat the lemons. It's just 329
Randall
years worth of lemons in order to power our space shuttle.
So I'm concerned. I know that these lemons are being grown for use in batteries, but if you've given over all of the world's agriculture to growing lemons,
you're going to have to start eating.
It's a good only lemon diet.
The people, those of us who are working on the project, at least, are going to need to eat something.
I mean, look, it would reflect badly on those of us who work on the Lemon Project that we weren't as dedicated to lemons as we should be pictured regularly, happily munching on lemons.
You can use a fraction to have some gin and tonics just to keep the...
Well, that's it.
That being on a section of for the quinine production.
How much of the planet should we give over to tequila? That's
yeah.
This is all well and good, but there is a slightly more serious point here, because we were talking about kerosene earlier. How are we going to power rockets and spaceships in the future when we're trying to move away from that type of technology?
That is a really good question. And batteries are wonderful. They're good for lots and lots of things. You see more electric vehicles on the road powered by lithium-ion batteries. People increasingly are looking to how we can use lithium-ion batteries maybe in things called eVTOLs, which are electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. They're like electric helicopters. But actually, even an electric helicopter needs a lot less power and energy compared to a space rocket. Getting a space rocket launched and out into orbit is one of the most energy-intensive activities that we can possibly imagine. It's going to be an awfully long time before we get any type of electrically powered rocket, let alone one that's powered by lemon batteries. But we will see batteries in other aerospace applications. So actually, people send up batteries all the time to the International Space Station. So once you're there, it's the batteries accepting the energy from the solar panels on the International Space Station that keeps everything working. Every satellite that we have up in orbit, they've got batteries on board. When we've got Mars rovers, they take up batteries with them that can then keep them running during the time that they're roving around on the Martian surface. But in terms of the primary power for a space rocket, I think it's going to be rocket fuel for a long time.
What is the problem here? Is it that you could do it with batteries, but they'd just be too big to be able to take off?
You get into this kind of vicious circle because you need a lot of energy, so then you've got a lot of batteries, but the batteries weigh too much, and because you're carrying all that extra payload, then you need even more batteries, etc., etc. And you just don't get close to the type of energy density. So we would measure energy density in watt-hours per kilogram, so the amount of energy that we store per unit weight, and you just don't get close. You're at least an order of magnitude, maybe a couple of orders of magnitude, lower in terms of current sort of cutting-edge battery technology than you need to be.
So wait, what do you get from lithium-ion batteries?
Well, so a lithium-ion battery that you would get in a vehicle would be about 250, 300 watt-hours per kilogram. Kerosene, I think, would be about 20 times higher.
I mean, we've seen drones take off there on batteries. A personal jetpack type thing, would that work with electric power?
So you're right, yeah, we get lots of drones, and you can buy like toy drones from from wherever, and they're getting bigger and bigger, and you're getting surveying drones. And I think that people have demonstrated actual passenger helicopters powered by electricity. Jetpacks, I've not seen one. The ones that I have seen actually have small handheld jet engines, which look terrifying, right? You've literally got two jet engines and you're pointing them at the floor. But in terms of ones powered by electricity, I've not seen any. If you look at the really small, like trainer aircrafts that you see in little airfields sort of buzzing around, historically they would be powered by piston engines, but you can buy now off the shelf almost electric powered fixed wing 1 or 2 seater planes. And actually, as the battery technology gets better and the airframes get lighter and lighter, we see more and more of those applications in aerospace. So it's not just helicopters, it will be fixed wing planes, and they're getting bigger and bigger. But we will hit up against a bit of a limit in terms of how heavy the batteries are and how big the plane can be.
So is our limit, say, when we get to jumbo jet type planes?
We're a long way from jumbo jets. I think we'll get to a place in the not too distant future where you'll get planes that can fly London to Amsterdam, for example. But London to New York, that's a really big ask. That's an awful lot of batteries and an awful lot of energy and power required in that journey.
Could we have like solar powered planes?
So following on from what Paul just said, there are those same planes, because if you think of batteries as an energy storage device, it actually stores energy. So you could have on the wings, and there have been some gliders, we have the wings are solar panels. And we mentioned the kind of satellites, mentioned the Earth station above the skies. Some of them have these massive solar panels and actually just storing the energy straight into batteries. So the combination of solar with batteries is quite exciting. It's an area of research that I'm doing. The technology, surprisingly, is there. It's sometimes to do with economics, just to get the costs down. But we want, obviously, the next generation is trying to convert more energy from solar, from the sun, but also storing as much as we can in a smaller volume, in a smaller mass, and that's the excitement. Sometimes we are going beyond lithium-ion and going beyond what current technologies.
Well, I mean, frankly, if there's one thing I learned today, it's that lithium-ion is pathetic. 20...
You can't say that.
Goodness
you're
me.
You're looking at a laptop there and you've got your own mobile phone. Without those...
There's a lot of headroom, though, before we get to kerosene. That's what I'm hearing. When you say we're getting there with this technology, do you think there will be one day where you can sort of jump on a solar-powered flight?
I think in the near future, unlikely. But who'd have thought let's say 20 years ago, that all of us would have not a mobile phone, but a mini supercomputer almost strapped to their left or right hand. So in terms of advancement, that has been disruptive technology, and we couldn't have predicted that.
And that still uses the rubbish lithium ion.
Yes, that still uses the rubbish lithium ion.
But is the model that we should think of probably like hybrid cars, that something that would alternate between the two sources? You've got solar panels on your wings. Once you're in flight, could you operate the internal services of the plane on that electricity?
It's important here to distinguish between what's possible in a kind of demonstrator prototype and the sorts of planes that one of us would get on at Heathrow Airport. In the sense of, a prototype that has solar panels on the wing and a really lightweight battery, people have done this. They've done really long flights with lightweight batteries, big solar panels, enormous wingspans on these planes. But it's not something that I would willingly strap myself to, and it's certainly not something that we're going to get 300 passengers from Heathrow to JFK on. So there's a really
strap yourself to a space rocket, though. To be fair,
well, so I wouldn't want powered by lemon batteries for sure. So I think it's a question of distance, but also a question of scale, and particularly in the aerospace industry, as you would expect, there's a huge safety concern there as well. So they're a relatively conservative industry in terms of the technologies that they adopt, but we do still need to get better battery technologies in a hybrid form or in a pure electric form in order to start chipping away at some more of those aerospace applications. And I will speak up for the lithium-ion battery, because actually I'm a big fan of the lithium-ion battery. You have to consider as well that when you've got fuel like kerosene or petrol, you're burning it. So you have a really inefficient process. You're burning the fuel to then put in the engine to then make the wheels turn or the engine move to fly the plane. When you've got a lithium-ion battery, you're storing electricity, you're putting it into an electric motor, you have a much more efficient system. So actually, even though you say you're storing a lot less energy, you make the energy work much harder for the job that you're hoping it to do. I'll speak up for the lithium-ion battery.
I mean, of course, it's the best that we've got right now, but we can do better in the future, can't we, Paul?
We're working on lots and lots of different flavours of batteries, and the wonderful thing about being in electrochemistry is you can look at the periodic table and think, I can almost take pretty much any two elements in a periodic table, put them together, measure the potential, work out if I get a good battery or a bad battery. Lithium-ion is the current sort of champion technology. But we've got other batteries which we're exploring, like sodium-ion batteries, where sodium can be cheaper and more available, or solid-state batteries, or lithium-sulfur batteries, which have a higher energy density. So we're always chipping away at what the next technology will be. And the wonderful thing in batteries is that matchmaking in the periodic table, we can think of lots more combinations.
Is all of this a materials question? There are materials we have yet to discover that could make these problems go away.
Materials are key for step advances. We haven't always discovered the best materials. Some of the materials that we discover aren't good enough or just too costly, or even actually producing too much CO2. Because another thing to defend lithium-ion on is in terms of...
You've really rattled of the lithium-ion industry here.
If you look at battery experts, of course we're going to defend ourselves. It's CO2 emissions. If you're burning fuel, you're just creating lots of CO2 emissions. So there are a lot of factors in trying to discover new materials, but it is a big factor is a materials discovery indeed.
If we're talking about being, ecologically aware and all that, what did you do with the 3,000 lemons?
About 5 of them for gin and tonics. The others, we went to a biofuel company and they used it for composting, so they weren't wasted.
Good.
They weren't wasted.
And anyone who was wondering that for the entirety of the programme, you can now rest easy.
Yes.
So I think we will, at this point, say thank you very much to our guests, Professor Saiful Islam, Professor Paul Sherry and Randall Munro. I think we've sort of answered the question.
Yeah, I think we knew the answer anyway. We didn't know.
I think the answer is not a hard no. It's just a very, very, very soft no.
Okay, you got to give us 329 years to grow enough lemons, then...
Close down all industry.
Yeah, just entirely lemon-based for the sake of one rocket.
Yep. Which, may or may not fail.
Yeah. I
think sometimes things are worth getting behind,
I think you think it could be like a moonshot kind of moment?
This is like a lack of ambition on your part, Darren Bryn.
Yeah.
What if it was potatoes? Would you be more excited?
I would, because you can prepare potatoes like 8 great ways.
Irish mixed grill?
No, I'm just saying, a bit of dauphinoise, a bit of, not mash, but all the other ways are generally great.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think that the great conclusion of this episode should be potatoes are greater than lemons.
Greater than lemons, and all less than kerosene. If you want to be notified as soon as a new episode is released, make sure you're subscribed to Curious Cases on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on. You can manage your subscriptions from the My Sounds tab.
Hello, I'm Brian Cox.
And I'm Robin Ince, and we are back with a new series of The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Robin, in 15 seconds or less, can you sum up the new series of The Infinite Monkey Cage?
Yes, I can. Do you want to learn how to win at every single board game you ever play, including Monopoly and Cluedo? Do you want to know about alien life coming from Glastonbury? Do you want to know about the wonder of trees with Judi Dench? And do you also want to know about the unexpected history of science with Rufus Hound and others at the Royal Society?
How is it unexpected?
I don't know, which is why it's unexpected. It's unexpected to me. It might not be to the listeners.
The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Listen first on BBC Sounds.
Hello, it's Ray Winstone. I'm here to tell you about my podcast on BBC Radio 4, History's Toughest Heroes. I've got stories about the pioneers, the rebels, the outcasts who define tough.
And that was the first time that anybody ever ran a car up that fast with no tires on. It almost feels like your eyeballs are going to come out of your head.
Tough enough for you? Subscribe to History's Toughest Heroes wherever you get your podcast.